Welcome to Spirited Straight Talk, the podcast to help you thrive with the help of spirit. I'm Deb Shepard, psychic medium, spiritual teacher, and author. Each week, I bring new insights to help you heal from loss, connect with spirit, and turn setbacks into triumphs. So let's get started. We are going to dive in deeply into a topic that I know without a doubt, and you know, Dana, that people make appointments for, to hear from their loved one, to ask, what do I do with their stuff? Even if there's a will, there could be, a lot of challenges with family members and friends, or it could be not clear, it wasn't updated, to they didn't have anything clear, or your loved one told you things but didn't tell the rest of the family. Mm-hmm. It can be just so many different layers and drama, as well as there's a lot of judgment around what you're doing, the time frame you take, and how it should look, and all these different things. So people are overwhelmed. If you have never been in that situation, this topic is still very important, because most likely in your life, this is going to be something you will deal with. And what I think is so important is to have your SHIT in order for anybody that is going to take care of your things. Mm-hmm. And I don't care what age you are, you're thinking, oh, it's way down the road. We don't know when it's going to be our last day. Mm-hmm. And having some things prepared, or even having that discussion, is going to help your family. And it's going to help you be able to figure out what to do with your things, as well as your loved ones who have crossed over. And this story can go from someone you were extremely close to a child, to someone that basically drove you crazy. And now you're responsible for taking care of their stuff, and you didn't even have a healthy relationship with them. So this is a topic that causes a lot of layers and emotions and grief. And so today I want to be able to talk about all the different options you have and ideas. I have at least 10, but there is even more. So when someone wants to know what's going on or what to do with their family things, it can be from their knickknacks to their, gold and jewelry and things like that, their home and property, from ashes to the remains, as well as their fur baby. So this is everything that's in someone's life. That can be something you have to make a tough decision, or the family involved has to make a tough decision of what to do. Mm-hmm. And basically, people are fear-based to make the wrong decision, believing that their loved one who has crossed over, it will upset them. Mm-hmm. And so they get frozen. They don't want to make a decision or choice. Or they also feel, if I get rid of their things, will that mean I don't have a relationship, or I don't have a contact with them, or my memories are going to be gone? And we're going to be able to demystify all of this so that people have a real clear idea and vision about what to do. Have you ever had to go through anyone's thing?
Yeah, I guess it was mainly when my grandma died. And as you know, she was more like a mom to me. Mm-hmm. My grandpa was still living. And so we were all really respectful.
That's
because
good.
It was still that's his wife. Mm-hmm. That was his home, his stuff, and I think maybe I grabbed like a hairbrush and some perfume of hers. For the most part, people were very respectful.
Oh, that's great.
But I know, and I can't even, how many times we book sessions that people have to get in to see you, sometimes on an emergency basis, or because they have no idea what to do. And they're in this situation with their family that
the dynamics of family.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's where I think there's a lot of, they don't know what to do, because there's a lot of pressure with that. I like to teach, keeping it simple. So breaking this down is really important. The one thing I know without a doubt through the over 2 decades is that the other side are not attached to the stuff anymore. We are, because there's memories, and even younger people today are not wanting, grandma's hutch or grandpa's
the china.
Yeah, the china, whatever. They're just not wanting that. So there's a lot of them are like, I don't want these things. Years ago, that was very different, because people had worked really hard, or these were things that you would pass down to family.
Right.
And what I hear now from loved ones is like, no, do what's easy for you. Don't try to hold on. Don't worry about each of those items. Mm-hmm. The other thing is that where there's some dynamics in family where they become very greedy. They'll even go to the home before there's even a service or anything, and they're trying to grab and control, or things like that can be very challenging. One of my favorite sayings is with Joe Meyer. She was the DJ that was on the radio station here for years that I worked with. And she wrote a book because she was the person that, helped some family members cross over and took care of their things. And the one thing that she said that I'll still remember is, if you're not from the womb, WOMB, get out of the room. And I thought that was really great, because other family members that are in marriages or outside of that will come in and try to insert what they think is right or fair.
Yeah.
And what I like about that is really going down to just who that individual is, the family that's direct versus all these extended family members, because it can really cause so much more heaviness and chaos. And so to me, that's a big one of really putting those boundaries and understanding that this is just directed to the family, especially if there isn't a clear will or living trust for that as well.
And don't you think, like, letting other people outside of the family, they almost, and we've seen this personally.
Yes.
I helped support you through a situation where somebody who was not directly involved was the one really controlling it all.
Yes.
And the things that happened through that were just, in my opinion, horrific.
Absolutely.
Like horrific.
And we're still dealing with it.
Yeah, but we knew without a doubt that that's who was controlling it, and they had a vendetta. So it's just bizarre how things get so twisted when somebody crosses over.
It is. And I think anyone that has dealt with this has realized how those that stirred up the pot in the past begin to stir up the pot with this.
Yeah.
So not only are you grieving the loss of this loved one, no matter what your relationship was and the layers to that, you are also dealing with the drama that comes in that's not necessary or needed. And that's where you have to figure out if you're the one responsible, or if you're the one that's on the outside trying to come in, to figure out what part you want to say and where you want to be according to your values and what you want from that relationship.
How about step back, Jack?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's so many emotions, because people feel that since the body's gone, the things that are left behind represent that loved one. Whether it's, their favorite jersey or even their pack of cigarettes, or like you said, the perfume and cologne.
I was just going to say, the one thing I kept that is a really weird sentimental value too was something she had just left behind, which was a sweater she would wear, and she had Kleenex in the pocket.
Yes.
And nail clippings.
Yes.
How weird is that? But I kept that for a long time because I felt like that was a piece of her. So that just...
Well, talking about this topic with one of our dear friends, she says going through her husband's things, she would find the lipstick in his tuxedo or suit that he would wear to an event, and that would take her back, because you would remember, we're going here. Would you carry this? Those are the things that bring up some of the grief and the sadness and the memories. In my opinion, as we go through and I give some ideas of how to go through things, these memories are okay. It's okay to revisit these. It's okay to have an emotion. So this topic is not only to help you through the grief process and how to support you going through it, but also the dynamics that come when people are cutting in, butting in, showing up that really don't need to be there. And that's the balancing act, because grief can cause a lot of different emotions. And when you're trying to go through this process and you have people bringing you anger, it really changes the energy and what you're trying to accomplish as well.
Yeah.
So going back to this number one, I think John Edwards said this years ago, and I continue to use it. Do you remember your first car? And I've asked hundreds of people this. I've actually had two people say, yeah, I still have it. I'm like, okay, wait a minute. That's not the answer. One of them was our friend Tony, their little Volkswagen Bug. That first vehicle has so much value and memories in our freedom. And so that first car at that time had just a big connection. But over time, we don't know where that vehicle is anymore. We're not attached to it. And that's where I want people to understand the things that they left behind that you may think was their favorite, that they collected these things or they have great memories, really are not that attached like that anymore. They want you to have the joy and fun of whatever works, but they're not attached to you keeping all of the things that were favorites to them. And we know that with my father-in-law, with all of his awards, which we'll talk about what we did with some of those things. Those were important to him, but we don't need to keep his 15,000 awards and, service things literally that he got. So it's understanding that, creating that balance of what you want. And remember, as you keep these things, when it's your time to cross over, the people that are taking care of your things then have that responsibility. So you want to just make sure what you keep is of value and it means something for you as well.
Right.
What we want to also, so number one is, remember, they're not attached to it, just we are. And when they're here and they talk about it, and you're thinking, no, that really was important, that is still an earthly experience. That is not their spiritual experience. So when they were here, yes, those things were really important. My wings behind me, as you people have seen, those things are of value. But when I cross over, I'm not going to be attached.
Who are we gifting them to?
Yeah. Someone we love or not love, because they're big.
If you go first, I'm keeping them.
Okay, good.
Just saying.
The other thing is, if you, depending on your situation, and again, shift this ideas to how it works for you. So if you're the one responsible to go through someone's home, go through their things, if you can have somebody with you that is not attached as much, or even if it's a sibling, someone close, both of you take different roles in that. Also limit the amount of time. So people think, well, they're coming in for a weekend, we have to get it all done. If that's the case, still spend 2 or 3 hours, time it, take a break, go for a walk, go get a bite to eat, go do something to release all that energy, because it's a lot. And I remember for me going through my husband's things, especially energetically, I had to take breaks. I had to walk away. There were times where I just couldn't focus on it. So you've got to allow yourself to know that there's going to be a lot of layers of emotion. So you don't have to do it all at one time. And even like I said, if it's supposed to be like we have 3 days to get through everything, still take the breaks, because you're going to be overwhelmed and it's going to take you longer to recover from all of that energy as well. Making it simple. I think the other thing that's really important to express to people that they don't always remember is the time frame. And especially for individuals who have lost children. If you've lost a child and you still want their room to be exactly the same for 20 years, you have every right to do that.
Yeah.
My husband's been gone, 14 years, maybe 14, 15 years. I'm trying to think, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
But my kids were really young, so I kept a lot of things. And as time goes on, I've gotten rid of more, but I kept them for them more than myself. So if it takes you 6 months, or it takes you 6 years or 16 years, that's up to you. And if someone says to you, it's been 6 months or it's been whatever, flip them off.
Right. And don't judge yourself about it.
Right.
If you're not ready, you're not ready. Right.
And if you decide to have someone come in and put things in boxes, and you decide one box every 6 months, whatever that means for you, you get to allow the amount of time you need. There isn't, a flow chart saying this is what you have to get. I don't like flow charts anyway, but there's a time frame, because your relationship with that individual is different for everybody.
And there should be no expectation or guilt or shame about your process. But also on the flip side, people who do that to somebody in grief, maybe you can talk about that a little bit, because do you think people project a lot of guilt onto somebody who they think should be doing it 100% a certain pace?
I think there's a couple things. One is they don't know how to help that person in grieving. They see their friend or family member struggling, suffering, whatever you want to call, and they are uncomfortable. So it makes them uncomfortable. Yeah. So if you get through it faster, it's better for them, and they don't know how to respond. The other thing is people have in mind, well, it's this time frame, move forward. And a lot of times their idea of it might be a great grandparent or a great aunt or someone they weren't close to, that they don't understand the process someone goes through. So if you're the one that judges somebody or says, it has been a while, it's been 2 years, you need to get moving, shut the F up and ask that friend, what do you need? How can I support you? That to me is how you really show up, not letting people believe that you have done it wrong, or there is a criteria or an expectation from the outside world. This is not your role. And as you know, I have that saying, stay in your own lane.
Yes.
it's none of your business how long it takes someone to go through someone's things. And you don't know what their relationship. If there is guilt in a relationship, they may hold it longer. If they miss them, they may hold on to it longer. Their grief process is theirs, not yours.
Yeah.
So don't judge them. And I know of families, even they've moved into another home and they've lost a child, they will take a room in the new house and make it identical to the room that the child had.
Wow. Yeah.
Who am I to say that that's wrong or right? And people are like, well, they're not moving on. Moving on from what? You never stop grieving the loss of someone that's close to you, especially a child. And you have no right to tell somebody what they should or should not be doing. If that makes them feel good and they go into that room and they talk to their child, good for them. They've created a sanctuary. Is it any different than any church or synagogue or gravesite or temple that someone has created to go and speak to their loved ones?
It's not.
It's not. They've created a sacred space. Let them create a sacred space.
And maybe they, in their room, can connect with them.
Yes, better. Yeah. They can smell, they can feel, they have those memories. And I think when people judge, they think that people are stuck, that they're not moving on. And I can call BS on that because it's not that they're stuck. This is what's helping them with their grief. That connection with these things is what they have physically to stay connected. It doesn't mean that they're stuck.
Right.
They still have a life. They're still doing things. This is just
that's their process.
Yeah. It's like someone carrying a cross or someone carrying, the Star of David or someone carrying something that represents their faith and belief. If you're holding on to someone's things, that is your faith and your belief. And you have every right to have those things.
Good. You've just given everyone permission to keep their loved one's stuff if they want to.
Well, you see when people are getting tattoos or they wear their ashes or, what's wrong? People agree or support that. But if you keep some of their things in boxes, people get upset. I'm sorry. That's what they want to do. That's really up to them. You're smiling at me. It's like, yeah. And I remember going through my husband's things thinking, I don't need 15 pairs of tan pants or blue pants. And so there were things like that I knew the family didn't want. So I gave them to, a charity. But there are other things that really represent my kid's father and his personality and the things that he loved. They have the right to decide whether they want those things for the memory, especially because they were just so young when that happened.
That makes sense.
And I wanted to have things. One of the things that you and I did, which I love, is when my in-laws both passed, we were able to get a piece of furniture, a sideboard, a big piece of furniture. And
it was a battle.
It was a battle.
But we got it.
It was a battle to get, which they were going to throw away, but we were able to get it. And you stripped it down and you stained it a beautiful color to match our home. And now we use it in our home, in our family room.
Yeah.
It's allowing people to know that if there's a piece of furniture or clothing or things that maybe you wouldn't keep, but you can repurpose it, great idea. Whether you sell it or whether someone in your family. I've had quilts made. I think one of the stories that I love in the past was this girl when her dad passed, he had like 50 or 60 ties. And she made a skirt from these ties. And for her, that represented her father. It was all the memories. It was the story she could tell. So it wasn't she gave them away. She was able to create something. And I think that's really something as well, too.
Yeah.
I think it's cookbooks or photographs. And one thing that you and I did, and we talked about my father-in-law, again, a retired 2-star general. So he had thousands of plaques everywhere. I mean, from the
awards
floor,
and pictures and paintings of himself.
Even in their garage. And of course, what are we going to do with them? And I know some of the family took things, but we photographed them. And our intention is to put them in an album so that our ancestors or my children's ancestors, their children, great-grandchildren, this wouldn't be the past, it would be the future, are able to see these things without having to have them physically in their home or being, oh yeah, here's another wood plaque. Here's another, because that doesn't really provide a history.
Right.
So if you have a history of a family member that passed, maybe they did something really great. I know one of our friends, Carla, her dad did some really amazing things. He was a pioneer in the medical community. I think he didn't do something like the first pilots or helicopters, fight for life. Yeah. And having those stories or putting things in a book and the newspaper articles, to me, those are things that you can collect from their things to be able to put in a book. So that could be something too that the whole family can enjoy and participate in too.
Yeah.
One thing I was thinking about too, this is an interesting, because people are cremated much more than they used to be. So I get asked a lot what to do with their ashes if they did not have an idea prior.
Yeah. That's a big one.
Yes. And so
big appointment setter.
Big appointment setter. And I think some people decide to be creative, especially if someone dies with not having a will, or, there were things that were not said. If you travel with that person's ashes and you distribute them, they're totally okay. And they will come through in a reading and talk about those things. The one thing that I have shared with students and clients is, because I study feng shui, is not to put the ashes in their wealth corner. Do you remember this?
Yes.
And so the wealth corner, when you do a Bagua map, would be when you walk in your front of your house, it would be on the back left of your home. Mm-hmm. So if you're not familiar with the Bagua map, Google it. It's easy to find. And a lot of people had their deceased relatives in their wealth corner. Yeah. So that would be the only thing. I'm like, don't put it in your wealth corner. But some people make altars. I think it's the ashes aren't really going to do anything negative. Mm-hmm. They're not going to haunt you. They're not going to make it and be negative, whatever you put them in.
Do they have wishes for their ashes?
No. This is something that we're attached to. I think part of it is they're not attached to the physical realm, the body, and the body is their human suit that they wore here. But when you have a reading with someone like myself, you're connecting to their soul. And so they come through and their soul is still intact. They're not feeling the pain or the dementia or all the other problems that you remember in their health. So the ashes are really one of the last things that we kind of think, what do we do with this? What I truly believe is what makes you feel good.
Yeah. So it's your process.
What's your process? Is
honoring your grief?
Mm-hmm. Is it, and this is another, going back to my in-laws, because he was in the military, he was supposed to be married at a military gravesite. And his wife she went before, and he put her in one of those,
a mausoleum.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And when he passed, he says, before he passed, he goes, that's where I want to be. Yeah. So he was able to, being in the military, I know that they talk more about what they want done. And so that was verbal and we were aware. But for other people, this is a topic people don't want to talk about. It's taboo. It's something that there's this back and forth kind of energy about what to do. And we think if we talk about it, it's going to happen. Well, I don't want to surprise everybody, but we're all going to pass. It's inevitable. That is definitely a prediction. Yeah. So preparing your loved ones and also getting from your loved ones what they desire is going to help on so many different levels.
For everyone who's still here. Mm-hmm.
The other thing I've had someone do,
because otherwise then they have to book an appointment with you to come and find out what their loved one wants.
Yeah. And the loved ones will, especially when there's challenges in a relationship.
Yeah.
They will come through and talk about those things. And I will give a little bit of advice on that. The other thing that I believe that can be helpful is if you're going through items, have a journal of some sort that you can write down memories that might be helpful after you've gotten rid of things. So like we said about take photos, write down the memories. One of my clients, Trish, they had lost 2 kids and she would paint their children and journal and channel these children and write them down. So to me, sometimes we get in that place and writing things down to go back and reflect on can be very helpful because our memories can be challenged, especially during a time of grief.
Yeah.
So those memories can be helpful. The other thing is they're not attached if you sell their stuff. And when I know some people go, well, I have so many memories of that home. I have so many memories of this vehicle. Just know that they're not attached. They're going to haunt you wherever you live and however you drive. But we feel like that's one of the last connections. And they, meaning your loved ones who've crossed over, they want you to find joy. They want you to have happiness. They don't want you to have this burden. And I know that when you are bringing in the joy and feeling happy and relieved, whatever that looks like for you, you can have a better connection and get signs from them.
Yeah.
And that's what's also extremely
This
important.
came up on your YouTube show, Grieving to Believing. We had a parent who her son passed from COVID at the age of 21.
Right, Cody.
And they had his truck. And that's where she was at, is like, what do I do with this truck? And he came through right away with
it's nickel and diming you, I think is what he was saying. Like it's costing too much money to move it forward. And it is another feeling of grief when you are that, especially with a child. It's one more item that you're not going to see anymore.
Right.
So I feel like that family, or whoever the family is, grieve, celebrate, take photos, write something.
Take it for a drive.
Go get some ice cream, whatever. Allow yourself to have another ceremony goodbye, things like that too.
Mm-hmm.
And
well, that's a good idea. A ceremony around.
Yeah, absolutely.
Getting rid of a big thing like that.
Absolutely. Especially because he was only 21, I believe. Mm-hmm. So he didn't have probably a lot of things. And so that vehicle would be something that, and I think his sister was driving it quite a bit, but it was costing money for them. And he knows that there was great memories with it. The thing I want to talk about too is the family drama. I think that's the hardest part of the things that people are going through. Mm-hmm. And
losing friends and family after a big loss like that too, right?
I remember reading a story, and I of course in my book I wrote about some of the things that people did after Brad died. Mm-hmm. I remember one story though. This lady her husband was a young man, I think he was in his 50s, and at her husband's service, someone walked up and said, what are you going to do with Joe's golf clubs?
I mean, hit you over the head with them?
Absolutely. And I know that things are said in what people do, and you're just looking at them going, wow, really?
You're worried about my dead husband's golf clubs, and he just passed away.
Yeah. And so the other part too, we talked about, if you're not from the womb, get out of the room. When you have a family member or someone in the family that was always disruptive, someone that liked to stir the pot, take power, have their last voice, that's going to happen when it comes to these kind of things. I mean, it even seems to be even more apparent. It's like a glowing big light. Mm-hmm. I'm going to recommend, if you're the one dealing with those individuals, stick to your guns. You're never going to make that person happy. Try to address the situation as quickly as possible to get it done. Decide what it's worth to fight. Mm-hmm. The other part of it is if a family member has a will in place, follow it, even if someone is giving you discomfort, complaining, mm-hmm. they're threatening you.
Right.
Because what I have found over the years is those individuals in those families are never going to be happy. You can give them everything and plus, and they're still going to whine and complain.
Right.
So don't get sucked into that. Be firm, be fair, and go by your gut. If you were the person that was the trustee or whatever, most likely you were given that opportunity for, you were the oldest child, or they believe that you can manage all the situation. If you have someone that causes conflict, you have to decide too how important it is to get these items.
Right.
Have fair. The cases that I see are really turbulent, whereas when there's big dollar amounts. And this has been a recent situation with, it's in the news, someone we don't know, not a client, but Lisa Marie Presley. Her will wasn't updated. People are questioning this, whether it was their money or not. So again, if it's $10,000 for some people, that can be a lot. Mm-hmm. And for other people, there's millions of dollars. So it doesn't really matter the dollar amount. It's what people do when they become greedy.
Yeah.
There's emotions.
So isn't she, like, Lisa Marie Presley's daughter is fully capable? She's like in her 30s, isn't she? She's a successful model.
But I think that her son was in the will as well, and he has passed. He suicided.
Right.
So they were both in it. So people are questioning whether the will.
But she has 4 kids. And so the 2 younger ones, it was put in, like, the daughter is supposed to take care of it. And then she has 2 younger kids too. And so the daughter is supposed to take care of all of them. And here comes somebody who wants the money. And sure, it's her mom, but they've been disconnected for a long time.
Right. Yeah. So there's all those different layers that go in. And
can you just do a reading on that? Yeah. I'm just teasing.
No,
that's a boundary.
I know. But I think this is all about boundaries. We think about when we're grieving the loss of somebody, no matter what your relationship, let's say the relationship was a struggle. That relationship never healed. And so there's a lot of guilt around that. If the relationship was really close, there's grief around that. So there are different types of grief as well as how people react and the tools that they have.
Yeah.
So depending on where you are in the dynamics, in my opinion, if the will is really clear, stick with it, even though someone over there is complaining or someone wants more or believes they deserve more. I had a session the other day where one family member took care of the mom for 12 years and mom left everything to her to decide how to distribute. Well, other family members, siblings, never even tried to help out in 12 years, never let it go away for a weekend, never kind of stepped into the plate. And now they want the money that's left, which is a house, I think, and stuff. You don't owe it to your siblings.
Right.
I think it's part of it, what's fair. And what I think is you get to decide. And remember, the other side doesn't care. And you are the one that has to live with your choices and consequences. And that's bottom line.
Yeah.
So this is for...
I think we'll spend all of our money.
Well, yeah. But, my in-laws...
And not leave anything
Yeah, my in-laws
behind.
go, we're going to go take this vacation. I'm like, go, don't leave it. Go have fun. This also goes to anyone that has not done a will, living trust, whatever you want to do, is no matter what your age is, now we have these phones, record with somebody you trust about what you would want and have it so that if something does happen, because of, do they want to be cremated? We didn't know what they wanted. Or what is it they want us to do with their dog? These are the type of things. Updated every couple of years. And you don't have to go spend a lot of money, which you probably do in certain states. And it probably would be better if you had...
Do your research.
Yeah, do it legal document. But having it recorded at least and being able to share that with maybe one or two people that if anything happens, to me, this is important. So if you have not had to deal with this yet, because most likely it will show up in your life, think about what you're doing for the people that will be responsible for your things, cleaning out the stuff. I mean, we've had a friend here recently cleaning out our kitchen cabinets. When you have things that are dated 2021 in your cabinet.
Who wants the almond meal from 2020?
Get rid of that stuff, because if you suddenly unexpectedly cross over, people are going to go, this is from 2019 when they throw this away. So they're going to talk behind your back. So get rid of your stuff. Let the process unfold the way you need, not the way someone else expects you to do. There are so many services out there that can come help you as well. You can donate, you can make in different piles, but break it up to how you manage it. Spend only so much time going through people's things. And also remember, there's not a time frame of when you get done with things. If you want to have a storage place that you have someone's things and you don't want to go through it for 2 years, you're okay to do that. It's you paying the bill. Do what works for you. As we say, what does it resonate with you? And that's what's really important. And this is a tough topic, yet it's very important and critical. The way you support someone going through it, how you ask for support if you're going through it, and then what do you leave behind for directions if you or when you leave. So
good advice.
I guess we need to do a little, of course we have things in writing. We know. They always ask.
I get the wings.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Just remember that don't let anyone define how you should grieve or what you should do, and just take your time and find really great ways to honor yourself through the loss of your loved one. Thank you for listening to today's episode. I hope it inspired you. If you enjoyed our conversation, make sure you subscribe so that you get notified of new episodes. And let's get connected. Visit debshepherd.com for more insights, support, workshops, and a book a session with me. And finally,